Welcome to LSC, it's Sports Time. I'm your host, Bob Hintz. Today I have with me Eddie Williams, who is a track coach, both boys and girls, over at Bethel High School. And let me tell you something, 12 state championships. It's unbelievable. Welcome.
Thank you.
Glad to have you here. We'll talk a little bit, let's go back and find out a little bit about you, because growing up, you ran track, but that wasn't the thing that most kids did when you were young, and you did that too, play football.
Played football. I came up through the Aberdeen system.
Right.
Played football. Mr. Harper was one of my coaches, school board member, and really got me involved in sports at that time. And the only running I really did was field days that we used to have in the middle schools.
Right.
And that was it.
Well, in the field days, evidently you were pretty successful.
Pretty good, pretty good. I won a lot of my sprint races at that time, and they nicknamed me Fast Eddie back in the beginning.
Fast Eddie. That sounds like one of those Paul Newman
exactly.
movies he was in, yeah. But when you went over to Eaton, you ran for a couple guys I'm real well with, and one of them happened near Al Lewis and Sylvester Rainey.
Al Lewis, Sylvester Rainey were the track coaches then, and there were some really, really, really good track teams. A lot of really good guys back in those days. Eric Brown, All-American at UCLA,
right.
Darrell Patterson, Arthur Armstead, David Washington. They were all some of the guys on those teams. And we had guys in the city we competed against at that time. Art Jones, who went to NC State, and Albertus Horn, who went to Phoebus and then Tennessee. So, I mean, track was huge back then in middle school.
Well, all these names that you just mentioned, I know all these guys, have known of them. Of course, I was over at Bethel and got to know a lot of those guys that you were talking about over at Bethel. But when you got to high school and track was it, I mean, there was nothing else, no other sports you ran. Did you run cross country or just indoor and outdoor?
At first, just indoor and outdoor. I didn't run cross country that first year. And you got to understand during that time, that particular year, later in the year, our 4x2 ended up being #1 in the country. Went down to Florida and at the time broke the national record. So I was going to a very good team. Everybody knew it was a good team. And I was actually encouraged not even to go out because, you know, hey, you won't find a spot this year. The team is that loaded. But I'm a little headstrong, you know.
Good
so
for you.
I just started training on my own while everybody else was playing football, and just got myself ready. And actually, Kaz's first time seeing me, I was had a hurdle out and was working on hurdles, and he was on the way to the football field. He looked, said, hey, looks good, I'm impressed. See you in the fall. So that's how I started track.
Well, I know Kaz was very instrumental in track. In fact, a couple of years I coached with him on track. I did the guys doing the shot put and the discus and that sort of thing. Very inspirational. He could talk you, I mean, get you thinking that you could run that thing a whole lot faster than you could. He was just that kind of a coach.
Kaz's philosophy was always, if you set high goals and believe you can do it, you can do it. And it's anything, you know. You start the year, your goal is football, win state championship. Your goal is in track, win your individual event, help your team win a state championship. And you gotta believe it. And he believes it, and he sells it to everybody else, and they believe it, you know. And that's one of the things I've carried on. You know, we set very high goals at the beginning of the year, and then we go about the process of working towards those goals.
All right. Now, while you were at Bethel running, were you 100 and 220? What were your events?
My main events was hurdles, especially the long hurdles. And if you're a long hurdler, guess what? There's nothing in track and field you can't do. So I was the multi-purpose guy. Whatever the team needed, I did it.
Okay.
And in fact, in later years, that's how I got recruited to VMI. A couple of the guys came back for a meet and watched me do 8 events, and they were like, hey, coach, we got to have this guy. He can do it all.
Well, you basically got offered a scholarship sight unseen by the coach.
sight unseen.
Very unusual.
Eugene Scott, former Bethel guy, David Washington, Arthur Armstead, they all came to the meet, went back and told Wade Williams, who was coach at the time, hey, we watch this guy. He can do, 8, 9 events. That's a guy we kind of need on this team. And Wade trusted his guys. He recruited a lot of guys from the Peninsula at that time. And all articles written were just talked about the Peninsula connection at VMI. And so he called, got me up for a visit, and offered me a scholarship without him ever seeing me run.
All right. Now, let's talk a little bit about Wade, because he really developed that VMI program into a national program.
The years I was there competing, it was a national program. We used to have state collegiate championships during that time, as well as Southern Conference championships. And quite frankly, they stopped having the state championship because Wade at this little VMI was beating all the big boys in track and field.
So how you stopped having to beat
So
you?
they said, no, I don't think we're going to have this meet anymore. But we won, 3, 4 conference championships, indoor and out, and won all of the state championships, I believe, until they stopped doing it my senior year. So.
Right.
It was a pretty successful team. And the large bulk of it was Peninsula District guys. So that made it special.
And that's really funny, because I'm listening to you now, and then I look over at Old Dominion's football team, and they've got 15 guys just from the Hampton system.
Hampton system, yeah.
And I'm not talking Newport News or Gloucester. So he's got others than that. Yeah. But I mean, it's just like, where do these athletes come from?
I think people are amazed at how much talent actually comes from this area in all sports. I mean, we've got several in the pros right now playing football. We've got an Olympian right now, or a future Olympian right now, coming from this system. We've had basketball players, all pros, all conference. So it's a lot of talented kids have come out of this system.
Yeah, and I talked to one of the guys I was interviewing over at NASCAR, and he says, it must be in the water. I think I'm going to bottle the water and see if I can't sell it. Well, but there's something that I don't know where it comes from.
We've played mind games with folks before. We've heard that comment before. So we've gone to some state championships where I keep having coaches from the other side of the water saying, hey, what are y'all doing over there? What are y'all doing over there? Is it something y'all are drinking? So we'll get some water bottles, make up some labels, and put on the water bottles and say, hey, don't touch, this Bethel water. And they get a kid. And some folks really believe it's something special we have in the water.
So you graduated from VMI with a degree in
electrical engineering,
and went to work with
Northrop Grumman. Newman Shipbuilding.
There we go. We'll know where it
changes its name so much.
Changes quite a bit. And then in 90, when was it? 92, 93, something like that. Pat Kovacs called you.
It was what I always still did is came back and worked as an official for the indoor and outdoor district and regional championships.
Right.
To just keep me involved, doing a lot of other things, but just keep me involved with track and field. And during the winter of 91 or the 92 season, she said, I got this hurdler. She's real good. She just needs somebody that really knows hurdles to take her over the top. Would you please come and work with her? So I said, sure, I'll do it. Quit some part-time jobs I was doing to make time and went out there with this kid. And she was a really good kid. And we worked, had a great time. She was a senior, had never qualified for the state championship. And that spring, me working with her, she qualified for the state championship final in the 300 hurdles and actually ended up finishing 4th in the state.
Fantastic. For somebody who never made it to the...
Had never made it to the state championship.
How about that? That's great. So the next year, Pat says, I don't want to do it anymore. Guess who? Well, she wants to do it, right?
She gave up indoor first. So 93 indoor season, I became the head girls coach, and that was my first year. And then the following year, she took a appointment to move up, assistant principal, and so
Right.
she had to give up coaching.
Right.
So she felt confident she had handpicked her successor. So she turned the program over to me.
Right. And during it, and then in what was it, in '97, you end up with both of them, had boys and girls.
In '97.
Right, and that's very unusual.
The girls program was very successful, and the boys program had went through some coaches that retired, and it was in a little bit of disarray. So the principal at the time, Dave Pearson, he said, "Hey, any thoughts to giving up the girls and taking over the boys? Because I can find somebody to come take the girls program." No.
I'm not going to give up what you worked for.
So, you know, I put a counter offer. I said, "Hey, I'll take over both programs and then give me a couple of years to work on the boys. In a couple of years, I have the boys program turned around."
Right.
And in 2000, the boys won the state championship.
Wow, that's
So.
great. Now let's go back a little bit about when you first started with the girls, and we talked about this earlier, that there was a young man that worked with them in the middle school, and we're talking about Ron Baton.
Ron Baton. Well, the first year, '93, was actually kind of unique because I inherited Pat's team, and
Right.
you know they had won the previous 3 championships, indoor, outdoor, so they were very experienced. So that team was just, "Hey, coach, don't screw it up." And they were led by Cantrice Pace, who is my assistant coach now and is married to Maurice Pierce, who's the head coach at Hampton University right now. So,
Okay. Is she down the shipyard, by the way?
No, she's in the school system.
Okay.
She actually works at Bethel. So pretty much, I just let them go and try not to screw it up.
Yeah, right.
And then in '97, '98, I got this group of kids in, and they were the Ron Baton girls. I mean, he had a real successful middle school program and summer track program, and he got a lot of kids interested in running, and they were some really, really good kids. And fortunately, they all fed into the Bethel system. So
Right.
now I had, you know, a group of kids that I could really build the dynasty that involved from that.
You know, you're 12 state champions. I mean, to me, that's just, wow. You know, is each one better than the one before? Or the first one had to be kind of special.
The first one was special because, you know, my first year coaching and such a good group of girls that I really didn't have to do much. Then the next group was really the '98 team, which probably was the best overall team out of all of them. And those kids were just so hungry and wanted it so bad to watch how hard they worked the entire year. That was very enjoyable for me.
Right. Now, you've had a lot of All-Americans go through your system, and I want to talk a little bit about those. If you can remember them, I'm not going to put you on the spot, and I don't expect you to remember them all. But, and then we got a young lady that's qualified for the Olympics that we're looking forward to getting to sit down and talk with. So let's talk about some of the young ladies and young men that made All-American.
Candace Harris was in that first '98 group, along with Era Towns, who won 3 state 100-meter championships. Marie Giles, Dion and Devin Hamilton. Moved on to Brittany Sproul, she was athlete that was kind of in the middle of the old guard, that first group, and the new guard, the Francina years, when she got in there. Then, you know, Francina came in there. Also in there was the boys group, Jamal Hazard, Marlon Manley, Dominic Richmond. They were all on that 2000 state championship team. Then down the road, JaVale Bullard won indoor and outdoor 400 state national championship. and was on a 4x4 with Austin Cuffey, Sherrod Marrow, Earl House. They won back-to-back national championships in the 4x4. Excuse me.
Right.
Then we got full-fledged in the Francini years.
Right. Now that's the young lady I want to talk about because she's a future Olympian.
She's a future Olympian. This past year, she finished 4th. Well, go back a little bit further. She finished 2nd in the 400 at the U.S. trials. Went on to represent the U.S. in the World Championship. She finished 4th in the Open 400, and then she anchored the gold medal winning 4x4. So that's really an accomplishment for a 22-year-old. Wow. Well, she's not even 22 yet. She's 21 years old. So I'm extremely proud of her.
Well, I can see, you know, that, wow, this is, but you know, you got to be proud of all your young ladies and young men who did well and went on and successful, and most of them went on to college and had some good careers in college.
I'm very proud of that fact. Most of the kids have gone on and got their degrees, and most of them used their eligibility, stayed in school, and have master's degrees. And one of my kids said she was going to sit down and make the list and go down and find out what everybody's doing just to publicize it. But I'm very proud of the kids that I have out here in the system and what they've accomplished collegiately.
Right.
And you know, they all send me notes and keep up. And
oh, that's great.
You know, when we win district or regionals, I'll get all these notes. Good job, coach. Keep it up. You know, we lose. What's going on down there? Yeah. And you have to come back. So, I'm proud of the kids that I've worked with and encouraged to move on over the years.
Well, I don't want to forget one thing. I'm going to go back to high school for just a second. You had a couple of teammates at high school. One of them, Frank Brown, whose son is now quarterback in Bethel High School, and I've known Frank for a long, long time, and Mike London. I mean, you three coming out of that group was
exactly.
That had to be something special. Now that you can look back on it.
Now we look back, and I mean, I'm just thrilled, tickled pink to see what Mike's doing up at Virginia, and he still gets back to the school, and we still talk. Frankie, little Frankie, you know, I've known Frank all my life. You know, we came up elementary school and everything together. So I've known little Frankie since he was born. That's what we call him, little Frankie.
Right.
And just, I saw him his sophomore year, and I didn't get to as many football games as I normally go to last year. So this year, watching him at the Hampton game was the first time seeing him in a year, and I was just so impressed. I was taken away. I was ringing Frank in the stands saying, "Who is this kid? It can't be your son playing football like this." So that I got a really, really big kick about seeing him doing so well.
Right. We're going to wrap this thing up, but I want you, if you're sitting down and you're talking to a track participant, whether it's a girl or a boy, it doesn't make any difference. What is your message to them that you're trying to instill into your runners?
We do things my way, and guess what? I've had a lot of success. And I'm not going to tell you about the success. There's plenty of websites, plenty of newspaper articles. You go read about the success and just know, doing it my way, this is what we get. So, you know, I'm real pleased about that. And a quick story about, this is my Francina story.
Do. Yes.
Coming from the system, I've known all the teachers at Bethel. So, you know, they know how I am, and they know they can pick up the phone and call me. And one day I had a math teacher pick up the phone and call me and said, "Hey, Francina, your star freshman is sitting in my class with her head down on the desk." I said, "Okay, I'll take care of that." Well, she called me from class. I took off from work and went down to Bethel High School and was waiting for her.
When did you come out of the class?
When she came out of the class.
Wow.
And I can't repeat the words that were said, but the bottom line is I kicked her off the team for 2 weeks until she committed to taking her book seriously. Never had another problem from Francina after that point.
And now she's headed to Olympic hope.
She Olympic hopeful, and she graduated from Hampton University in 4 years.
Fantastic.
So that's what it's all about right there.
You summed it up in a nutshell. Appreciate you coming in.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to LSC and Sports Time. I want to thank my special guest, Eddie Williams. I'm your host, Bob Hintz. Till next time.